Live from the Interaction Media Studio in Morgantown, welcome to the Positively West Virginia Small Business Mastermind. I'm your host, Jim Matuga. It's June 24th, 2021. For those of you joining us live on Facebook, welcome and thanks for tuning in. We have a great mastermind panel for you guys today. First up, we have John JB McCuskey. He's West Virginia's 21st State Auditor. JB, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. We also have Tia Reppert. She's the Director of Human Resources at Bear Contracting. Tia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And my co-host this morning, Andy Kniceley, publisher at WV News. Andy, good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, we have this great panel. We're going to be talking about some really cool stuff this morning. But before we jump in, I want to just say a few words about this program. Every week at this time, we gather like-minded business leaders from around West Virginia to discuss some of the most relevant business topics of today. Our goal with this mastermind is to inspire and equip business leaders to win in West Virginia. We welcome your comments and questions. Just type those in the comments section below. Positively West Virginia Small Business Mastermind is brought to you by the State Journal, WVNews.com, and Interaction Media. Last Thursday, June 17th, the State Journal and WV News kicked off their 2021 Generation Next 40 Under 40 event. It was held live in Clarksburg at the historic and beautiful, I might add, Robinson Grand Theater. This esteemed program was created about 16 years ago to celebrate West Virginia's outstanding professionals who make a difference on the job and in their communities. This year, Tia Reppert, one of our panelists today, was an honoree, and we'll be speaking with her about this recognition and what it means to her. And the keynote address to kick the evening off was our West Virginia State Auditor JB McCuskey. Most of us who were in attendance last Thursday at the Robinson Grand, we were moved by his comments, and we were honored to have him on the show today. Andy, talk a little bit before we get to JB and Tia. Talk a little bit about Generation Next 40 Under 40 and the significance of this long-standing program and what it means for the state of West Virginia.
You know, Generation Next is one of the things that we look forward to do every year. We get the opportunity to help select and highlight and tell the story of the 40 young people under 40 who's made significant contributions in their field and in the communities that they serve. And so getting the opportunity to hold this event, honor these 40 people and tell their story is something we love doing. And it's an exciting time to be at the event. It's special. It's a nice multimedia presentation, and getting to meet these winners in person and create new relationships over time. So that's really a great thing, and we need to do more of it.
Absolutely. Like I said, that was the first time I had actually been to the event in person. I love it. I've been a fan of this program for years. Joining us on the panel today is West Virginia State Auditor JB McCuskey. JB, you were presented the opening remarks for the evening, and I was blown away, quite frankly. I mean, I said I was moved by it, but I was blown away by your comments. You described the advantages of staying here in West Virginia to work and live, to these young people, and what that means. I would love to hear your expand on some of that and kind of share your thoughts with our audience this morning.
Sure. So the big thing that for me is that when you're a 35, 36-year-old, 25-year-old, whatever you want to be, if you're somebody who wants to be a leader and you're somebody who likes to take charge of your future and shape where you live, how your kids are going to grow up, West Virginia is sort of the ultimate opportunity left in America, right? So, yeah. You can move to Charlotte, you can move to Raleigh, you can move to Dallas, DC, Northern Virginia, whatever you want, go get a great job and have a great life. But that's a pretty simple path. But here, there's some difficult leadership initiatives that need to take place. And what we're really looking for is people who want to say, look, I want to move my family to a place that I can turn into the place that I want to see. And I think West Virginia is a beautiful opportunity for that. And moreover, and maybe even more importantly, what you have here, if you're an entrepreneur, somebody who wants to start a business, is one of the last places where community really matters, right? And if you're starting a business, knowing that your neighbors, the people that live next to you, that go to church with you, that go to your kids' school, are going to support you and your endeavors implicitly, that goes a long way towards being ultimately successful, because what we know is starting a business is hard. My wife and I have a small business in Charleston. We sell women's clothing, and it's just so much easier when you know that your neighbors have your back, and that exists here, and that's just so important. It's so comforting, and it's such a wonderful opportunity, I think, for us to tell the rest of the world this story.
I love that. That's really encouraging to hear that from you, JB. And as one of our state leaders, I really appreciate that. And you mentioned, 35, 36, but here's Tia Reppert. She's 25, and I don't mind sharing your age. It was in the publication, Tia, so it's public record. But
Nobody
Tia,
minds sharing your age when you're 25, by the way.
That's right. That's right. Well, Tia is the director of human resources for Bear Contracting. They're a heavy road construction company. They do a lot of stuff, great things around West Virginia. And here she is leading the HR department. Tia, what are your thoughts, especially as it relates to JB's comments there, as a recipient and honoree of this award? It's such a cool thing. Talk a little bit about from your perspective, what this all means.
Well, I mean, the award itself, I think it's really important to have an award like this available for young professionals in the state. Our population is unfortunately declining according to the most recent census from April of 2010 to April of 2020. We've declined 3.3%, I believe. So it's really important to, retain individuals in the state, especially young professionals, because that's the key to our state's success.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah, I think that's really important to keep in mind. JB, I don't know if you're familiar with the movement that we have going here at Positively West Virginia, but since 2017, Andy Kniceley, myself, Brian Jarvis, the president of WV News, we've been on this mission of telling the entrepreneurial stories of small business around the state of West Virginia. We believe that small business is the backbone of West Virginia. There's approximately 114,000 small businesses in West Virginia and make up a large part of the state's workforce. And we love telling these stories of small businesses and their success stories, and from every single county in the state. We love to highlight these things and talk about this as a way to inspire people. We're just doing our little part here to try to promote this. But, I'm curious, as the role of the state auditor of West Virginia, tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're responsible for folks that don't know.
Sure. So the auditor's office in West Virginia is kind of wild. We're the largest auditor's office in the country, and our office encompasses several areas that people probably don't understand. So the first thing we do, which is the easiest to understand, is that we audit all of the state's payments. So roughly 50 to 60,000 invoices a week go through our office, and we have to make sure that they are legal, they have a proper contract, they went through purchasing, all that stuff, which is a really hard job. It's really important, but it's kind of thankless. I'm also what's called the chief inspector. So we are in charge of auditing all of the local government. So all the cities, counties, school boards, economic development groups, airport authorities. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 17,000 individual audits or 1,700 annual individual audits that we're responsible for.
Wow.
We are also the securities commissioner, or I am the securities commissioner, I guess I should say. So we are in charge of licensing and regulating all the stockbrokers in the state, everyone that is involved in the secured transaction world. And we are also the land commissioner. So I own all of the tax delinquent property in the state, and we're responsible for selling it and getting it back on the market.
Awesome. So what role do you play in attracting small business and new companies, not only small business, but large employers too, into the state of West Virginia? What role is the state auditor play in that?
Well, I don't know that the state auditor necessarily plays any specific role in that, but economic development is a team sport.
Yes.
And one of the things that I work on with my staff and my team is every single company that we work with, everyone that comes in from out of state, and the most recent one is this data robot project that you guys know about, we can talk about later. We ask them, why don't you have an office here? We're sitting here trying to do business with you. We want you to come in and help make our office more successful. What are you doing to make West Virginia more successful?
Yeah.
And sometimes they say, whatever, we don't care. But sometimes they say, let's go take a look. And every single time when a company comes into West Virginia and they look around, they say, you know what? My employees are going to love it here. this place is incredible. We're 5 minutes from work, 5 minutes from church, 5 minutes from the grocery store. The schools are good. It's beautiful. The housing prices are low. And they start to look at Boston and New York and San Francisco and these places where they're from. And then they look at their 35-year-old employees and they can very easily say to them, hey guys, there's another life out there. We can do what we do here more efficiently with a better lifestyle. And our universities are pumping out kids who can compete in every single way, in every single field across the board. And that's really the story that Data Robot and I have. And I think that's a story we can tell over and over and over again.
That's awesome. Tia, you're from Bridgeport. You grew up in Bridgeport, West Virginia. You went to Fairmont State for your undergrad. You're getting your MBA, I believe. Is it an MBA from Fairmont State?
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, what JB's saying is as a person that I'm listening to, I'm 56 and I'm thinking, man, this is powerful. I want to stay in West Virginia. But what's it mean for a person of your age, going through Fairmont State, getting a master's degree right now? You got a great job at Bear Contracting. Talk a little bit about why you stay here. What's drawing you to stay here in West Virginia?
I mean, West Virginia, and I may be partial, but I think it is the number 1 out of 50. So, but I mean, the landscape, there's really nothing negative to say, in my opinion. I'm sure I could think of a few things, but overall, the people are the reason that I think West Virginia is probably my top place to live. There's so much room for growth and opportunity that the possibilities are endless. It's just a matter of taking it by the reins and going after it. Like JB had said before as well, we have a clean slate. I mean, the possibilities are endless. We can make this into anything that we want to make it. So I think that's what's most attractive to me as a young professional in West Virginia. I can't think of a better place to, have a business or even raise a family.
Yeah. Andy, weigh in.
Well, Tia, as an HR professional, I mean, obviously recruiting people to West Virginia is critical. We don't have enough young people, young professionals to fill all the jobs that we need. So tell me a little bit about some of the success you've had and what you've done to recruit people into West Virginia.
So it's a challenge anywhere to recruit qualified individuals, but we can't just say, we can't find anyone and leave it at that. So implementing training programs, working with local technical schools, vocational schools, any type of relationships that we can build and create a network. We have to be a team, and that's really our best way of reaching out and making sure that we equipped young individuals in the state with the right tools and the right information to become those qualified employees later down the road.
Yeah, that's awesome. JB, a couple of weeks ago, we had John Chambers himself on this program for an hour, and we were talking a lot about the opportunities with Virgin Hyperloop and all these different things. And we talked about the partnership with WVU and talked about this. He referred to it as this window of opportunity that West Virginia has over the next 3 years or so. The door is open, the window's open. Now is the time to attract these people, these companies to come into West Virginia with things like this, the Brad and Elise Smith Ascend program. I know we have here in Morgantown, we're one of the key cities. And I just heard a report at the Morgantown Area Partnership Board meeting this week that they had over 7,000 applicants for those 50 spots. That's incredible, right? There's a lot of interest in West Virginia. You mentioned Data Robot. I know that you met with CEO Dan Wright from Data Robot and President E. Gordon Gee from WVU just a couple of weeks ago, talking about the state's partnership with Data Robot, this incredible AI firm. Talk a little bit about what, you had this interaction. You mentioned it just a minute ago, but what was the thing that what was the secret sauce to getting them to look at this as an opportunity?
So it's interesting. So it's funny that John Chambers is sort of the intersection here, right? So one of our big initiatives in my office was this transparency initiative, and we have the West Virginia checkbook, and it's our goal to make sure that all the state's finances are the most transparent in America. And John is one of the major investors in this company called OpenGov, which is our main contractor. They're the guy we do all the work with. And then we turn around and we're working with Data Robot to try to introduce some artificial intelligence into our audit process, to our fraud monitoring, and really into our budgeting process to try to sort of revolutionize the way that we look at government information and how decision makers receive their information. But what Data Robot said to me is they said, we're working on democratizing data. And what we want to do is make sure that our company is using all of its resources to empower those who are less fortunate. It's not the correct word, but maybe people who don't have enough money to afford these kind of tools, right? So small businesses who could really benefit from artificial intelligence, they want to make sure that that technology is available to them. And I said, you know what, that really feels like what West Virginia values are just in general. And I said, your company really stands up and aligns with who we are. I'd love to get you into Morgantown, show you what we got, show you our amazing university, and see if there's something we could do here. And they came by, they saw the town, they saw the people, they met all the incredible people at Vantage Ventures, Sarah Biller, they met, President Gee, General Hoyer, and that whole team is just so powerful that they fell in love immediately.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sarah Biller's been on this MasterMind panel a couple of times as well. And they are doing some incredible things there. And technology is an important part of that. We talk about diversification of our West Virginia economy a lot on this show, especially. Andy, I know you're big on that, what's happening with the aerospace industry, especially there in Harrison County. Andy, give your thoughts on what JB was just talking about there, if you would.
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to JB. Everything he's done for transparency in West Virginia serves the people in a strong way. As journalists, we don't have to wait days and weeks to get information now. We have instant access to look at data and do a good job in terms of reporting accurately on different governments and how the spending's going. So
absolutely,
thank you, JB, for that. From the high tech and the aerospace, we have enormous opportunities, not just here in North Central West Virginia, but we have them in Charleston, we have them in Huntington. I just saw, and I don't remember which other Southern college just added aircraft maintenance program to their repertoire. That's coming on bigger and bigger and bigger. North Central West Virginia Airport is currently over a $1 billion economic impact, rapidly moving to $2 billion economic impact. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Regional Jets has made a commitment here that's truly a game changer. They're going to add, first of all, they need 150 new employees today, okay? And to go on top of what their current staffing levels are. And I believe that's around 250. But they also announced last Friday 500 new jobs on top of that, where they're going to manufacture their own parts right here in Bridgeport, Harrison County, West Virginia. That's incredible. That's like nothing else. And then there's an announcement today at 4:00. So lots of good things happening there, and on the high tech side as well. I mean, Robert C. Byrd brought the FBI fingerprint facility to Harrison County, I believe, in the year it opened would have been 1997, I think is the year. And that's been a game changer as well. You've got thousands of independent contractor jobs working in North Central West Virginia off of Homeland Security and fingerprinting and imaging and all those things, plus the other national firms that are aerospace related that have come here as a result too. So
Yeah.
It's helped diversify the economy and bring people into West Virginia that normally may not have been here. But
Absolutely.
I think that they've become very much a part of the communities that we live and become West Virginians at heart. And, as JB was talking a minute ago, we have lots of opportunities with Ascend West Virginia. And with that, with the remote worker economy, our state has a lot to gain from it.
Absolutely. JB, you couldn't see, I don't think, because you're not on camera, but when Andy was talking about transparency in government, I was over here applauding. And, I think one thing that we need big time in our government is that trust. I feel like you're bringing a level of trust with this Open Gov and being able to have that transparency. I think that word gets overplayed a lot, but this is truly transparent government when you're looking at, and it's kind of nice having somebody that you talked about having your back, having our backs as taxpayers, making sure that somebody's looking over this and making sure before any of those checks are signed, that you're looking at that stuff and your team is. So thank you for that as well. JB, I wanted to ask you a little bit, Generation Next, the 40 under 40 is all about, in my humble opinion, is all about our future leaders of West Virginia. Talk about, from your perspective, and quite frankly, you're under 40 as well. What's your perspective on the leadership potential in the future of West Virginia? What kind of hands are we in right now?
So I'm only under 40 for another couple months, which is a little scary, but I'm gonna ride this train as long as I can. But so I think that there's an inherent leadership quality in West Virginia, period. So we are a group of people who are so inherently self-reliant and so inherently kind, I think, to others. And I don't know that you can find two specific character traits that are more needed in a great leader than kindness and self-reliance, right? So you have to be able and willing to do it yourself, and you have to understand how your actions affect the people around you. And so for me, when you look through, history, think about all the incredible leaders that came from West Virginia. I mean, you're talking about football coaches, basketball coaches. We had Louis Johnson, who was the head of the War Department right after World War II. West Virginia has produced leaders forever. And I think we're finally getting to the point now where our leaders are going to look at our state and they're going to say, I want to lead here. I want this to be the place that I lead, because quite frankly, real leaders want a challenge. And making West Virginia an incredible place is going to be fun, but it's going to be really, really hard. And so we're all going to have to be pulling in the same direction. But I'm very, very bullish on what our young people are going to be able to accomplish in West Virginia over the next 25 years. If not, I wouldn't be here.
I love that. And what was interesting, and I'm going to paraphrase your comments from last Thursday night in Clarksburg, but I remember something to the effect of, it's easy for somebody from West Virginia, a young person, just like Tia Reppert, she could go to Charlotte or she can go to Nashville or Chicago and get a great job and have a nice place to live and be one of millions of people, right? But the hard thing to do as a leader, especially as a young leader, is to stay here in West Virginia and do it here. It's going to be much more rewarding. It's going to represent our values, but the easy thing is to leave. The hard thing is to stay. And I think that empathy that you were talking about and that resilience, if you will, those two character traits that you were talking about, I think that is extremely important. So did I kind of paraphrase you right, JB?
Sure. And I sometimes hesitate to say easy because it's still hard to move your family.
Sure.
It is easier, right?
Yes.
And the difference is that you can go and live in a place that's already pre-made, right? And they're pre-made in a very nice way.
Yep.
Charlotte, all those places are great. But I don't live in Charlotte because I don't want to live in Charlotte. I want to live in Charleston or Morgantown or Bridgeport, but I want them to be the way that I need them to be.
Yeah.
And I think there's this whole group of people that are sitting there saying, I can make this place what I want it. It doesn't have to be inconvenient or expensive like these other places. It can be our version of those places. And that's what's really exciting is the opportunity to build it the way that you want it. And I think that's
Absolutely.
just so cool, and it's so motivating for me.
It is cool. Tia, I would love to have you rewind back to last Thursday night, and when JB uttered those words and he was talking about that subject. What went through your mind? What was in your heart?
My family, I have been a part of small businesses in one way or another throughout my entire life. My dad owns his own auto repair shop. My boyfriend owns a flower shop in Bridgeport. So I've seen the behind the scenes. I've seen the hard work. I've seen the struggle, the challenges, and I've also seen the rewards that those bring on. So I know that having that in West Virginia, we would not be able to have that in a Charlotte or a Nashville. So I mean, as I was sitting there, that was in the back of my mind, thinking that, the benefits outweigh the challenges. It's not easy. It's very difficult, but you can't match what we have here.
Yeah,
Moving to a Charlotte or a Nashville. Or
Tia, I think what you
DC.
just said that's so important is that you can have it sooner. That's the other thing that's so interesting, is if you're 25, you're the HR director for a really, really awesome company that has a really cool president. If you're 25 in those other places, you're behind 30 other people.
Wow.
And so if you're a young person who's really interested in being a leader quickly and moving up fast, you got to be here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I mean, sometimes it's surreal. I have to question, am I in the right place? Do I really know what I'm doing? But I clearly do. So I agree
Well, I
with
can
that.
tell
It
you're
is, it's
talking to
much
Mark,
sooner.
you're in the right place.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great. Tia, that they call that imposter syndrome, when you have those thoughts, but don't park on those thoughts very long. You're doing great. And JB, I think, what's cool about hearing Tia talk about this is that, I think, hearing words from a state leader like yourself, that is inspirational. It's motivational, knowing that people believe in these young people. Andy, the fact that you guys put out this magazine every year, and just we have the opportunity to see these people, get to know them, hear their stories. It's incredible, and I am also just very optimistic about the future of West Virginia with people like Tia. Our producer on the show today, Dylan Sheldon, with my company Interaction Media, was one of the recipients, and I couldn't think of a guy who's more qualified to have that designation, that honor. So I think that's pretty significant. Andy, I'd love to hear your thoughts and weigh in.
Well, it's kind of difficult sometimes to limit the number of honorees.
Sure.
And that's a good thing.
Okay. How many folks do you have typically applying or submitted or nominated?
It jumps up and down around 200.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
But what I would really like to do is talk about two things. I would like to talk about networking. Okay. And T, I'd love to be able to talk to you in 6 months to see, has your other members of your class, did you guys form a relationship and business wise, and have you, do you stay in contact with each other for any reason, and what you gain out of those relationships? The second thing is I would challenge every person that's been an honoree, that not just this year, but in past years, to go out and try to recruit people to nominate other folks that are under 40 and under that deserve such recognitions for next year. Because, I'd like to be choosing out of 300 or 400. Okay. But, it is a big honor to be selected. With that, my challenge to every member of the class would be make your mark, leave your mark.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Move the state forward.
That's good stuff. JB, I'd like to come back to you. There's been a lot of talk about the American Rescue Act. Literally millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars are pouring into states across the country. our audience is primarily business owners and business leaders across West Virginia. What are some things that we need to be paying attention to over the next couple of months as the American Rescue Act funding starts hitting and starts being distributed? What are some important things that we should be paying attention to?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing is that, we talk a lot about the need for broadband in West Virginia,
Yeah.
which is obviously a need. It's beyond a need. But when you really look at where we are, every time it rains, it floods. And it's really, really hard to find continuity and to build a business in a place where you can't flush your toilet. And so our water and sewer infrastructure is really, really in dire need of a massive upgrade. And the part of it that's the most frustrating for me is that we are, the birthplace of rivers, right? We have all the water on earth, and yet we charge the people with the least money basically in America the most for water anywhere you can find. And so my great hope is that this money gets spent on great big projects that are combined, that rethink the way that we deliver water, rethink the way that our stormwater drains, so that we can really build the base infrastructure that's going to enable larger businesses to move to West Virginia. Because what's interesting is that the internet will come, right? If we start building these great big companies and they're moving their people here, the base of people needing internet is going to grow, and they'll be able to actually build the fiber in a way that's private industry based as opposed to government based.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And of course, with that infrastructure build comes jobs in companies like Bear Contracting, right?
Precisely like Bear Contracting. That's exactly right.
That's awesome. So, Andy, do you have any thoughts on that as it pertains to the American Rescue Act and infrastructure?
I don't think we have a greater period of opportunity because of the federal dollars that come into West Virginia to upgrade and make a change. It's going to create jobs. It's going to help local businesses, engineers, construction folks, laborers for, probably 4 or 5 years. I see an economic boom as a result. I see us able to make the upgrades in our infrastructure that JB just described. And without those dollars, I don't know when they would have happened.
Yeah.
Well, and Andy, I'll tell you one thing. So we built sort of a first of its kind program. So all of the counties and cities are going to deposit all this money into a singular account. And it's all going to be spent out of the account and accounted for through our checkbook program. And so what that's going to do is a few things. First, it's going to help our cities and counties build projects together. Secondly, it's going to give us the ability to help them do all their federal reporting, because with this dollars comes all kinds of oversight. But third, and maybe most importantly, it's going to give everyone that's listening and everyone in West Virginia the ability to hold our elected officials accountable, myself included, to make sure that we don't get 10 years down the road and once again have everybody say, whatever happened to that $1 billion? The real key here is that the citizens of West Virginia need to say to their elected officials, hey guys, this is our chance. Let's make this right, okay? And we actually know what you're doing, and we're going to hold you actually accountable.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Tia, what do you think as a young person when you hear that kind of talk about this money and investment and holding people accountable? What are some things that go through your thought or through your mind?
I think accountability is a huge part of leadership. I mean, you can't have one without the other. So I think it's very important to be transparent and we have so many resources available as young professionals. I mean, we can pick up a phone and get an answer to just about any question. So you're going to have more young people asking questions and, staying up on policy and taking an interest into, locally elected politicians and, at all levels. So I think it's really important for us as a state to hold ourselves accountable and to be transparent in our actions, because it's our responsibility as West Virginians to hold each other accountable.
Absolutely. And I think, when I hear JB talking about infrastructure, talking about water and sewage is not real sexy, right? It's not it's not fun stuff to talk about, but it's vitally important. It's essential for West Virginia's next step, right? At that 3-year window that John Chambers talked about, we've got to start moving in these directions. And I think we are moving. I think there's a lot of really positive things that are happening. Andy talked about some of those as well. JB, I know that you're going to be dropping off here at 11:45. I would love to get your final closing thoughts on this conversation over the last 45 minutes or so. What's some things that you're optimistic about for West Virginia right now?
Well, I mean, one of the things is people like Tia, obviously, right? So,
Yep.
we live in this world where a 25-year-old woman who comes out of a state university is basically in charge of half of a giant company in one of the fastest growing economies in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And that is a story that is replicatable. And what people need to see and what people need to understand is that if you stay home or come home, the opportunities that you thought you needed to leave for exist here, but you have to make them. And is that a little harder? Yes. But when you make your own opportunity, the reward at the end is so much greater than when an opportunity is given to you. And when you talk about sort of the, it's trite, but the mountaineer spirit, right? It is that. And I think as we move forward, we just have to make sure that we stop with this sheepish sort of, West Virginians are, we know how great we are, but we don't ever want to tell anybody else. We need to start telling everybody that this is the place and that we are from here and you should be too. Not, we're from here, it's awesome, I'm sorry you don't live here. It needs to go further than that.
Yeah, absolutely. JB, it kind of reminds me, my company and myself personally worked with Deborah Martin at the West Virginia SBDC, and we came up with this "Come In, We're Open" campaign. You may have seen it. I'm holding up the sign right now for our viewing audience, but that campaign is really shining the light on small business that, hey, we are open. The campaign just launched last Thursday through the governor's office and SBDC and SBA. And what's neat about that too is that the SBDC, the SBA, the state government in West Virginia is very, very open for helping entrepreneurs, helping small business owners. If you've got an idea, a dream, you don't have to do it alone. And we talk about community a lot on this program. There are people out there that want to help you be successful. People just like JB McCuskey. JB, I just want to thank you for being on the show today. I know you got to jump off. It's been great having you on, and hopefully we'll have you on again down the road.
I'll be on anytime you want. You guys keep doing this. These are the kind of messages and podcasts that need to be getting out to the world so that people can hear our story and understand what opportunities are here. And I just couldn't be more thankful to be where I am and more thankful to you guys for the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. JB, thanks, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. You all have a great weekend, okay?
All right, you too.
Bye, Andy. See you guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Andy, Tia, I want to continue on this path because, I think the common theme that I'm hearing today is, we've got an amazing story. We can't necessarily compete with Nashville or Charlotte or Chicago, but we can compete by defining our message, finding that differentiator, what makes us different, the ability to get there quicker, just like JB was talking about, the ability to raise a family, to be able to have all the outdoor adventure that you ever would want, having access to natural resources. Andy, talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what do you think, how do we get that message out there? As JB was talking about, you're a media guy, media, how to get a story out there. First, I think the step is, developing the stories, plural, and then amplifying it. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that, if you would.
We've got to change what the national headlines are about West Virginia.
Yep.
We have suffered a lot due to the opioid epidemic that hit West Virginia on a per capita basis harder than anywhere else. some of the environmental things in a state that's so environmentally beautiful. But some of those messages that's been out there are overshadowing the stories about all the wonderful things. I'll tell you, I wouldn't hesitate one bit to drink water out of Tiger Lake. Okay. Now, I'm smart. I'm going to drink bottled water or whatever when I can, but we have so many wonderful things. The number one thing we have is human capital, the people of West Virginia, and what they are do. They're dedicated, honest, hardworking people that, given an opportunity, can accomplish anything. Now, in our state, we've got to do a better job of making sure we get more of our young folks taking the path that Tia took, to go to college, get a meaningful degree, and then pursue the next level master's degree program. Education is the key to prosperity.
No doubt.
I mean, that's the bottom line. It doesn't matter where you begin. It doesn't matter what your household incomes are. You find a way to build your education, and you will find a way to be prosperous. And you can do it right here in West Virginia.
Absolutely. Great wisdom there. Tia, I'm curious from your perspective, if you had the opportunity to talk to a young person who's considering leaving West Virginia, or maybe somebody who's thinking about coming here, what would your story to them be?
So I actually have this conversation with both of my sisters who are looking to relocate after graduation. And I think a lot of it is they will have to learn for themselves, unfortunately. But I have a lot of friends who have moved away thinking that the grass is greener, and their move was very short-lived because they had to see it for themselves. But I think, like we've said, the opportunities in West Virginia, you have to be a self-motivated individual, because you can have whatever you want. You just have to go for it. So, and I don't think it even necessarily has to be a formal education. There's opportunities. Just in construction, I work with some of the most intelligent people that I have ever been faced with, and they wear steel toe boots every day. So I think the opportunities are here. We just have to really promote that it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be, those opportunities aren't cookie cutter. You can find your best fit. There's something for everyone here. We just have to help and guide people to find what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Tia. I want to ask you, you talked about leadership, right? And I don't know you very well, but I feel like you're an excellent leader. What's one leadership lesson you've learned over the last year or so?
I've been involved in leadership one way or another throughout my entire life. I was involved in student government. I went to all of the student council, all of the conventions. So, when we talk about leadership, it's usually in a positive sense, which is great. But, one of the most challenging things I think I've come across in the last 12 months is leadership. It's not always pretty. Leadership is not always attractive. It's difficult, and, sometimes it can get ugly. And I don't mean that in the sense of, being aggressive or hateful towards anyone, but you have to make difficult decisions. You have to have difficult conversations, and that's all part of being in a leadership role.
Absolutely. I love that. I have a saying that I'm fond of. It says, everybody wants the fire, few want to chop the wood, and sometimes you got to chop the wood,
Absolutely.
and sometimes you get blisters, and
Right.
sometimes you bang your knuckles on the thing or whatever. But Andy, what are your thoughts on what Tia's saying there?
Well, I love hearing what she's saying, because
Yeah.
I will tell you that in doing the backgrounds, research on nominees, the feedback we got about Tia was remarkable. And part of that, I think that's really important is I think she's got a great mentor. Okay, listen, Mark Urso is a bright young guy who came back here and started this companies, and they're growing and they're giving back to their communities, and they're doing all the right things to attract talented people like Tia. There's other people out there that's doing the same thing, and that's going to be the keys to success for our state to grow. I mean, that's the bottom line.
I love that. Yep.
We have to give those people opportunities.
Good
That's where
stuff.
state government's got to be a good partner with those companies to help them succeed and prosper as well.
Absolutely. Tia, I know that you work with Building Hope Incorporated. Can you talk a little bit about that and your involvement and what you're doing from a leadership there?
Absolutely. So Building Hope, we started Building Hope in, I believe, 2017. We did our first program, and then we started to branch out in 2018. And what it is, it's a one-day program. We typically go into high schools. We try to stay with a freshman class because our goal is to stay with that class and do the program each year so that by the fourth year, the entire school will have experienced the program. But it's a one-day, 8-hour program where we work with students. We use volunteers from the community. We use teacher volunteers and then upperclassmen student volunteers as well. And we focus on breaking down stereotypical barriers and, letting the students see each other in a new light. So I haven't met a person yet that hasn't been faced with some type of adversity. And I think when you're in high school, in middle school, even, everybody, has that idea that the grass is greener. So breaking down those barriers and allowing people to see that, hey, we're all human. I have struggles just like you have struggles, and showing them that they have a support system in the community, whether it be in the school or having a mentor outside of the school. We work to build those relationships at the high school level, and we also focus on showing these students career opportunities in the state of West Virginia through that program. So we have a presentation at the beginning of each program showing them opportunities in construction, natural gas, and we are trying to branch out and include some other, career opportunities in our presentation. So it's kind of twofold that we're really promoting the state and we're trying to, get to these students on a human level.
That's awesome. And I love that. Yeah. Go ahead, Andy. What were you saying?
It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I saw that in your submission, and those kind of things really are the things that help us make finalists picks. Okay. And at your age, being involved in that, and it's so much needed, and your approach in addressing these issues. I mean, talk about leaving your mark. You're going to be leaving your mark, and you're doing it at an early age.
I love it.
Congratulate you.
Absolutely. I love it. Tia, Andy, my thought on, the difference between success and significance. Significance, you're making a difference, right? And I'm a big believer that once you taste significance, success isn't that much important anymore. So making a difference in the world that we live in, making your mark, like Andy was talking, what Tia just described, she is having a life of significance. And I think that's super cool, especially at a young age. Tia, I want to ask one thing that you're optimistic about right now before we close out our time here. What's the one thing you're optimistic about in West Virginia right now?
It's hard to just say one thing, but I think just opportunity overall. I mean, we have so many possibilities, so many things coming down the pipeline to be excited about. With the Hyperloop coming in, Virgin Hyperloop, that's very exciting. That's huge for the state. Like I said, it's hard to just say one, but I think the opportunity that we have here in West Virginia, that is for sure what I'm most optimistic about.
Awesome. Love it. Andy, one thing you're optimistic about right now?
I'm optimistic about the future because I just had the opportunity to meet and greet 40 young, outstanding Generation Next leaders in West Virginia. I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm not worried about, when I get old and decrepit and next year, that the next generation is going to make sure that our state's well taken care of.
Absolutely. I'm going to encourage folks, if you haven't picked up a copy of this, we also have a link to the digital edition, Andy, as well on the Facebook Live. Read the profiles of these 40 young people. You will be inspired. Check out their stories. Check out their bios, their photographs. I mean, these are our top 40 people. It's a diverse group from all walks of life here in West Virginia, from all sorts of companies that are out there. And I just want to encourage people to read that and be inspired, be equipped. And to JB's point, it might be a little harder to stay here in West Virginia, but it's going to be very, very much worth it. Tia, I want to thank you for being on the call. Tia Reppert is the Director of Human Resources at Bear Contracting. Congratulations once again for your honor, and just thank you for your words of wisdom today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And we are having Building Hope programs come up in August and September. Well, September and October, excuse me. So if you're interested, let me know. We need some volunteers.
That's awesome. Great stuff. Thank you. Andy, as always, being our co-host today. Andy Kniceley, publisher at WV News, including all the publications that they represent, including the State Journal. Andy, thank you for your contribution to the conversation today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jim, and thank you so much for having a vision for Positively West Virginia and small business masterminds.
Absolutely. Folks, that's it for today's Positively West Virginia Small Business Mastermind. Our hope, our goal is that we brought you some valuable insight that you could use in your business and in your life today as business leaders to win. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for the Positively West Virginia Small Business Mastermind. They are the State Journal, WVNews.com, and Interaction Media. Positively West Virginia is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can learn more about our mission of advancing small business and entrepreneurship in West Virginia at positivelywv.com. And you can check out our podcast. We have over 200 episodes on there now. And it's just been awesome telling the stories of entrepreneurs and small businesses across the state. Don't forget, if you are a small business, the Come In We're Open campaign for the SBDC, just a hashtag is come in, or We Are Open WV, hashtag We Are Open WV. And also want to remind folks down the line on all these WV News stations that coming up at 12:30 today, we have the Healthy Harrison podcast. That is a great opportunity to learn about the health initiatives going on throughout the Harrison County and spilling over to all of West Virginia. So make sure you check out the Healthy Harrison podcast. On behalf of our entire Interaction Media and Positively West Virginia team today, including our producer today, Dylan Sheldon, one of the recipients and honorees of the Generation Next 40 Under 40 2021 class. Dylan Sheldon, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. I just want to remind you guys to stay positive, West Virginia.